Hello and welcome to our first YouTube video ever. Wish we didn't have to do it, but gotta do it. It's entitled Evinrude Goes Tits Up, The Problems Never End. The video series is about how buying the wrong outboard motors has cost me over $300,000 to date, and the cost is still rising rapidly. It's an amazing story how buying two new Evinrude E-TEC G2 300 horsepower motors last summer has cost my family a boatload of money and frustration, culminating in my production of this documentary based on my actual experience with these technologically advanced motors going forward, known as TAMs. During my experience, I encountered many professional people that spoke to me on the condition of anonymity due to their affiliation with the Evinrude company itself. Mostly I'll refer to these gracious individuals by their geographic location and company position, not by name of company or individual name. I am thankful to them and wish them all the best as they wish me all the best by giving me inside information regarding the many Evinrude product issues. I'm certain that if BRP knew about my story, they would offer remediation immediately. The story really has its beginning over a year ago as my son and I visited the island of Exuma, Bahamas for his Christmas break in search of his first lobster dive. The trip was such a great success that we decided to purchase a third boat. Already had a Mastercraft and a wake surf boat, and we wanted to enjoy the surrounding islands while we had discovered exploring in Exuma. I explained to my son that it would take me several months to both identify the right boat for our needs as well as make an intelligent purchase. It was at that time I acknowledged to my Exuma guide that I would accept his offer and start booking tours as soon as he could, and I'd have him a boat by August 1st. My research and study concluded that the best boat for our needs, mainly diving, fishing, and cruising, was an Intrepid 366 with twin 300 horsepower Yamaha motors. When my guide the previous year had invited me to put the boat to work on charter cruises, he insisted that I only purchased Yamaha motors due to reliability. I tried. I was specific in looking for a boat that had either just been repowered or had less than 200 hours on the motors. Last June, I located two boats I deemed worthy looking at in Florida and traveled down to see them both, only to be totally disappointed at the condition they were in. And it became apparent pretty quickly that it looked like people really just kind of trashed these boats and then tried to sell them. Finally, a boat came to my attention in Tampa that really sounded like the owner was proud of his boat. And upon my inspection, I found he was both accurate and somewhat of a perfectionist. It was the perfect boat with only one tragic flaw: the motors. He had just repowered the boat with a motor I had absolutely no interest in. The owner explained to me that he had done copious research and these motors were indeed far and away the best. So, out of respect for him, I read too. I read for about a week, and I concluded the following. The motors had some fascinating features, and if true, combined with the warranty, how could you beat them? They seemed to be, indeed, far and away the best. My final decision was based on the information I received, and of all things, a YouTube video last year. I Googled problems with Evinrude motors, and I came across a guy in North Carolina, everybody knows as the Real Hooker, that had a serious motor problem, and after he posted his video, Evinrude contacted him the very next day and decided they wanted to make it right. Perhaps after viewing my documentary, they may decide the same, or like the previous Evinrude company, they may indeed file bankruptcy. In any case, my responsibility is to make sure other people don't fall prey to what I consider to be a dangerous motor. The many following segments will separate the motor from the myth that is the tremendous Evinrude propaganda machine. I'm no dummy myself, and keep in mind that after 7 months and 3 different attempts by certified Evinrude shops, I'm over $10,000 into this thing trying to fix one motor, and I know as much about these motors as anyone outside the factory. In many cases, I probably have more experience in the factory, as I took it upon myself to collect information from many shops simultaneously, whereas the factory software won't allow one shop to look at the service record of another shop. Amazing, but true. I took the time to connect the dots, and after 7 months, I'm finally able to unpack the true story that is the Evinrude myth. July 21, 2018 was predicted to be a great weather day from South Florida all the way through the southern Bahamas. Wind 5 to 10 in the afternoon, seas of 1 to 3 possible, would be like a bathtub for the intrepid. And so we decided we'd go. So 3 souls departed Black Point Marina at 0600, headed to the Stilt City waypoint where we would accelerate to 38 to 40 miles per hour for our proposed 5 to 6 hour crossing over to Nassau. While I had grown up on San Francisco Bay and had many years experience with big fast boats, I employed not 1 but 2 Bahamian captains. Sugar Horace Smith had been my guide the previous year in Exuma, while my other captain, Princeton Roll, had made the crossing many times in boats much smaller and much slower than mine. As we planned, we accelerated from the Stilt City heading to Cat Key for customs and our cruising permit, and the culmination of months of my work was indeed underway. Never could I have imagined how quickly the dream would turn into a nightmare. All 3 of us marveled at how well the Intrepid sliced through the waves. The boat was light, incredibly strong with its Kevlar hull, and honestly it handled like a dream. We were holding 38 to 40 miles an hour through the Gulf Stream chop and enjoying every minute of it. Before I knew it, Cat Key was visible on the radar, then in sight, and finally we were tied up at the dock. I went through customs while the Bahamians relaxed with the guards, and I soon realized my decision to have locals on board the boat was indeed worth the price. So we departed Cat Key, new course direct Nassau, and when about 45 miles off land, my pilot eyes withheld an ominous sight on the horizon. After 35 years of flying my own plane, I've learned a lot about weather and missed forecasts. We were going to get hammered. The sky in front of us was turning first blue and then black. Since I was the so-called electronic officer on board, I employed the radar and determined that these thunderstorms were rapidly building. Our 12 o'clock position, our course heading, and our course speed. The width of the line of thunderstorms was in excess of 45 miles. There was no going around them. The really scary part of flying in bad weather at night, alone at 25,000 feet, are the sounds. Changing sounds. You are perfectly aware of what your motors sound like, and then you enter a thunderstorm and boom, it all changes. Although the Evinrudes did not go boom, the change in tone was immediately audible to all 3 of us captains simultaneously, as we went from extremely concerned about the weather to extremely concerned about the motors. We each gave it that WTF look as we again calculated our current circumstances. The seas were rapidly growing, now about 6 to 8 feet, soon to be about 12 to 14 was my guess. We began to verbally speculate that perhaps we had picked up some bad gas in Miami, or perhaps had lost a spark plug, but it was clear that the starboard engine was only running on 5 cylinders. I'll never forget looking at the hour meter that day. Only 32 hours on the motors and the problems began. By now our speed had been reduced to about 25 miles an hour as the helmsman, Captain Roll, struggled to keep the nose of the boat out of the next crashing wave. We began taking extremely heavy salt spray over the entire length of the boat. There wasn't a dry inch anywhere. Having a 6 motor severely curtailed the ability of the boat to accelerate when we needed to overcome the endless pounding of the preceding wave. It felt like the boat weighed an extra 3,000 pounds in the rear end. About 5 hours later, we limped into Nassau, beyond wet, beyond cold, and frankly lucky to be alive. It was here that I had my first taste of the Evinrude warranty, served cold with extra salt. I approached the local shop and was told, sorry, it'd be several weeks before they could even look at it. Not the end of the world, I thought. It's still running on 11 cylinders. So we took on new fuel, drained our Raycor filters, and again took to the water the next morning, headed south to Exuma. My captains explained to me that the rest of the trip was tucked in behind islands, so we wouldn't be in open ocean regardless the conditions of the motors. So we all voted we'd go. I had operated these motors a total of 7 hours. Little did I know that even at the 100-hour mark, they would still be running on 11 cylinders at an additional cost of over $10,000 and rising quickly. We had all three anticipated the engine start the next morning, and we had all agreed we had a permanent condition. So we departed Nassau, headed south, and our next motor surprise. I still laugh when I think about it. Just south of Staniel Key at a speed of about 34 miles an hour, both engines quit simultaneously. Dead stop. What the fuck? Again. There we sat, three captains staring at each other with amazement, all thinking exactly the same thing. Hell yeah! Sure glad this didn't happen yesterday. We'd all be dead, 150 miles from shore. That's when it started. No, not the motor. The I told you so. Captain Sugar lost it right there and then. He cursed, and you expect me to take people 100 miles in the ocean paying $2,800 a day with these piece of shit motors? No fucking way, man. I had a great surprise for you, my friend. You stepped up and bought a great boat. I had over $250,000 in tours booked from August 1st through January for you. These motors just convinced me. I told you. I can't afford to have this boat destroy my company reputation. Damn motors could have killed us all. In a sense, he was right. I couldn't blame him, and I sure as hell didn't argue with him. That was our first experience with computer codes. Since we were less than a few miles from Captain Roll's house, I asked him for the helm, and he just smiled. You're a boat, man. I can swim from here. I love the Bahamian sense of humor. So I tried the unthinkable. I pulled the controls into neutral, and I pushed the start button. Damn thing started. Same with number 2. Don't start swimming just yet, Captain, I explained. So I paid Captain Roll his $1,500, and I made my apologies for the Evinrude on the back of the boat. Little did I know that in less time than it took to reach Barataria, our destination of finality, about 90 minutes travel, these motors had already become infamous throughout the Exuma chain. Upon our arrival at the dock, the local village was already gathered, waiting to confirm the story with Captain Sugar. Welcome to the Exumas, courtesy of Evinrude. Moral of the story? It seems that when you live on an island, the reputation of a boat motor that your life depends on is significantly more important than the motor that propels your bass boat across the lake on a Sunday morning. That concludes the end of part 1. In our next segment, we'll begin to list all the issues encountered with these motors, as well as dealing directly with the factory techs that tried to understand their cause. The boat has been on the trailer now, it's now February, now for over 7 months, moving for only testing or trips to the shop. Currently, the starboard motor is a shop in Miami. I'll spend this week writing episodes 2 to 5 in preparation for the Miami Boat Show, where I will be lecturing at the Evinrude booth for all to learn. Thanks for watching, and I guarantee you that it gets a lot more interesting, and I know a lot about this stuff. I spent a lot of time studying, and hope you'll tune in for the next one, and see you shortly, because they'll be in quick series. Thank you, and have a great day.